Kathy, thanks for joining.
Oh, hi, Dan. Glad to be talking with you.
Glad you're here.
Actually, I'm in Maine, where I have a summer studio, and I used to live here year round, so I come back every summer.
So you're in New York the rest of the time, right?
That's right.
You've just gone recently to Maine.
Well, yeah, I'm settling in
How long do you normally stay?
until after Labor Day,
Nice. How's
like
the
all
weather?
the other tourists.
But you live there full time, so you're not technically a tourist, right?
That's what I think. I'm not really from away.
What's the name for somebody from Maine?
Maine,
Amina?
yeah.
I never heard that.
Oh,
Maina.
they're Mainers are very conscious of who belongs here and who doesn't. Are you in New York City?
I am. Yeah.
Wow, what a place to be in.
Isn't
Did you
it?
go dancing in the streets and all that?
No, no, I'm kind of a square, actually, to be honest. I was asleep when the fireworks were going off and they'd won the whole thing. And that's what woke me up. And I was like, oh great, the Knicks won. That was my that's how I found out. It was great for the city. I think there's great energy here and I love the spirit of it.
Well, even the aftermath. I mean, I'm still hearing loving reports of how the whole city was united and there's hope in the air and oh, just I'm so proud to be a New Yorker.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
Were you watching the games?
No. I
Same, same.
actually didn't care anything about it until all this wonderful celebration.
I think that's the interesting thing is like I think there's so much that can unify us. I was listening to a podcast with Yuval Noah Harari, who wrote the book *Sapiens*. I don't know if you do you know him.
No.
It's a great book. It's basically it traces the history of humans through this very interesting perspective. He's been saying this for a long time that nationalism is actually a good thing because you can love somebody that you don't even know, you'll never meet. And it doesn't require hate. It does require love. Love for somebody that's it's quite abstract when you think about it. It's somebody that's not in your immediate tribe. So I think this sort of shows you it's a little slightly like a microcosm of that the Knicks won, and it's like, yes, that's great. We're all together.
And it was kind of tribal. I remember when Biden won the election, I was in Brooklyn and there was such a commotion. I went outside and walked to McCarran Park and people were dancing and banging on pots. It was tribal, and I was glad I belonged to that
Yeah.
tribe.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling, isn't it?
Yes,
We truly are social animals. Are you getting into the studio groove now?
in the studio.
Yeah, how's the studio gone so far?
Uh, I wish it were better than it is, but I always wish that
Hmm. Could always be worse too.
it could be.
The first time you and I met, it was at Peter Shear's opening at Chime Reed. And I don't know if you remember this, but you said if you want to show at Chime Reed, your advice would be don't live in Bloomington, Indiana,
And
where
wasn't
Peter
that a
lives.
jerky thing to say?
I was a great no, I think it's true. I think both
Who did I say that to? You?
to me, yeah, because I
I
said I
guess
knew
I was
Peter.
making a joke then.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
mean,
was
Peter Shear defied all odds, don't you think?
yes. We grew up in the same town in Indiana, so we've known each other for a long time, and just watching him come up like that has been really satisfying.
Yeah, very exciting.
It's rare.
It's wonderful. Um, well, I think what we learned from Peter Shear was that he has a really good eye. He would select gems from well-known artists, and many of them we hadn't seen. And so he did his homework, and he seemed to post artists that I love. So I knew I had a lot in common with him.
Are you in, is your studio in Brooklyn?
Yes, it's in I've had a studio in Brooklyn since the 80s, before it was the Brooklyn we know now. It was the early 80s, and it was kind of unusual to get a studio in Brooklyn. Chris Martin persuaded me to go in with him, and share the rent, uh, right near the Bedford Avenue stop in Williamsburg. And there were a few artists out there, but it wasn't, uh, and people said to us, no one's going to come out there to see your work. And people did come out, but they'd always arrive early because they thought that going out to Brooklyn to someone's studio would take them a long time. And actually, if you took the L line to Bedford Avenue, you'd get there in no time at all.
Just a few stops.
Well, it's the first stop in Brooklyn.
And now, of course, that's coveted real estate.
Now it's very well known. My mother was very upset when I told her I'd gotten a painting studio in Brooklyn because her generation associated having to live in Brooklyn with being a loser. She felt sorry for me. Then one by one, her grandchildren all started living there. And now my grandchildren love my studio, love the neighborhood. They crash on my pull-out couch. So it's turned out to be a really fortunate move. And I'm forever grateful to Chris Martin.
I would say just as many artists have studios in Brooklyn as anywhere else in New York.
Maybe more.
Probably more,
Someone
certainly.
told me there are more artists in Brooklyn than there were in Florence during the Renaissance. Now, I don't know how we're going to check that, but I love to think about it.
I think it's probably true. And it's amazing. It's so amazing that we're living in this time where being an artist is accessible. Like anybody can be an artist in that way. You know, who's going to argue with you, right?
That's an interesting point, but it could be debated. Where's your studio?
I'm in Sunset Park,
Yeah,
South Brooklyn. Yeah.
that's another frontier, isn't it?
It's great. I love it here.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's right by Industry City, which I moved here 10 years ago. I've lived workspace over 10 years ago. And that was sort of like the thinking that that the whole neighborhood would get gentrified because of Industry City, but it hasn't really spread out from there and it stayed pretty affordable. I've got the beach right here, a lot of amenities,
So
a lot of cool stuff.
you live there too.
I live here too.
Good
Yeah,
for you.
it's
So
great.
you're showing that you can move from Illinois, right,
Mhm.
to New York and find a place and a life and a community. It's possible.
It's possible. Yes, it is. And meet all these wonderful artists such as yourself. There's just so much incredible energy here. Relatively accessible too. You can go to openings in my neighborhood. I don't know if you know Corey Ryman's space, Art Cake, stuff happening even
That's
here.
right.
Yeah.
Art cake. That's right.
I just spoke with Michael David briefly. He's going to be on the podcast in the near future. Do you know him?
He's a lovely guy. He
Lovely.
he speaks like a poet.
Truly.
You're going to have a wonderful conversation with him.
Yeah, I think so. He's been putting on some great shows there, though. I don't know if you've caught any of the stuff he's been doing.
Yes, I'm pretty close to Fang Bui.
Mm.
Fang Bui of the Brooklyn Rail was also one of the original settlers of Brooklyn, and we all got to know each other. I knew Fang Bui before he was part of the Brooklyn Rail.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So you came up, you got a studio in Williamsburg in the 1980s. What was it like being an artist at that time?
Well, I wasn't a young artist. I had moved to New York as a single mother with my school-aged children who were twins, with a dream like everyone else. And and a lot of yearning. And fortunately, right away, I met a group of actually young artists, Rick Briggs, Chris Martin, Peter Atchison, um, who were all in Brooklyn. Well, we all had studios in Brooklyn. Um, and our goal was to get a show in Manhattan. It was called Crossing the River. If we could do that, wow, that would be, life would be much better. And, when you're living a dream, it's pretty exciting. And after several years, I saw Chris was the first one. He got a show in Manhattan and it changed his life. And it was so exciting to see that and to cheer him on and to believe, well, you can come to New York with a dream and it might come true. The dream of just being an artist, not necessarily being rich and famous, but being an artist.
So the goal was to make art and just be in a place where you could be free in that way.
Yeah, that's right. To live the life of an artist. That's what I wanted. That's always been my top priority.
Did you ever feel like that you'd achieved that? Like, was there a point where you where you said, "This is it. I've made it. I'm an artist."
Look, I never said I made it, and I don't think any artist can feel that. I I heard a conversation with Alex Katz, and someone asked him if he felt he got enough attention, and he said no, he didn't feel he did. And he said, and none of my friends feel they do either. So I'm saying attention, meaning you've made it. But I'll always remember that. Um, anyway, uh, I'm 84 years old now, and I do feel that I am living the life of an artist, and that's very, very satisfying.
There's so much freedom in your paintings. They defy being categorized very easily. There are a lot of things at once. There's just a real joy in your work.
I really love to hear you talking like that. Um, Thank you. I think there were moments when I thought, well, I could trace things. I could use photographs. I could use a computer. Um, and I said, no, you don't want to go that way. You want an open-ended practice. You wanted to be able to make your decisions in the moment using a lot of spontaneity and improvisation. And I still believe in that. It's very important to me.
So you don't use any photo reference or any techniques, any projection or anything like that.
Oh yeah, projection. No, I don't. I did use projections for a while, and it's wow, look at that. It really looks good. Like you've achieved a, a suitable painting. It looks grown up and finished and so on. But I was warned against going in that direction, so I didn't do that for very long.
So early on in your career as a painter, what kind of paintings were you making?
Well, little. I started out making little paintings, um, abstract, um, just kind of like I paint a background and then put dots all over it. Wow. Oh yeah, that's great. The first artist whose work I loved and wanted to paint like was Joan Snyder, who did her stroke paintings in the 70s. And it just looked like, oh yeah, that's the way to paint. Just take your brush, dip it in paint, and make marks. Make those marks reveal a painting. The trouble is, when I did that, it just looked like I was trying to be Joan Snyder. So I had to, I had to find another way to paint. But I've always been very interested in a lot of other artists' work.
What point would you say the way you're working now and the way you're thinking about painting now is sort of coalesced?
I've been painting for decades. I'd say there are lots of points, but um, I'm I'm still trying to find myself.
I think that's maybe what attracts me and attracts other people so much to your work is that it doesn't feel like it's locked down. It feels like there really is there's an openness in your work and you're still figuring it out. I think the best painting is like that, where you don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I like when I look at Augustine, I feel he's still trying to figure it out. He's he's drawing with those black lines and then he's painting over it. Then he's finding something else. It's tremendously appealing to me.
People can pick up on that too, that sense of discovery. Looking at the work, painting is so wonderful like that, where your journey is really embedded into the materials themselves.
Yeah. Um, and I like the feeling that I have to be on top of it every moment. I'm always a little suspicious of people who say they listen to anything, to things while they paint. I find it very important to not listen to anything. Although, Dan, I've heard you ask many artists, what music do you listen to when you paint? And they often come up with things. But my answer to that is I need absolute quiet so that I can just focus very intently on what I'm doing. And when music is playing, I feel it elevates your mood and you think that you're doing great. And then after a while or the next day, you realize maybe you aren't doing great. So that's another reason that I try and just stay very quiet in the studio when I work.
So it's to see things more objectively.
Uh, the intensity of it. So it's just between you and what you're doing. That's it.
Do you think about things you've seen or heard while you're painting? Or are you really just trying to focus on just painting?
I think that is painting, things you've seen or heard. And I mean, I start putting the paint down and I see things in it. That's how I started doing swimmers. I would put a lot of paint on the surface, like a color field, very loosely. And then I swear, if it was blue paint, there would be oh, there's a little boat or a little swimmer. I would see it in the mark making. I know it sounds like Ouija board, doesn't it?
So it kind of reminds me of when people see faces in trees. What's that called?
Yeah, I don't know what it's called. Yeah.
I think we all have a tendency to see things, and maybe if I think if you're focused, if you're really looking hard enough, then it gets interesting.
Yeah. Big tool, our eyes. I remember someone asked um, uh, Susan Freecon, an abstract painter, a question. She was standing in front of her work, and she said, very simply, this one sentence, she said, all my decisions are visual. And I didn't forget that because it's so important. And so I spend a lot of time looking at what I'm doing, especially when I first come into the studio in the morning. I decide what needs to be changed, and then I get up and follow my instructions. And as the day goes on, I don't think I have the courage and the energy to do things like that.
So you have to do it right away.
I have to do it right away, yes, while I'm in top form, because I sort of wear out as the day goes on.
How long do you spend looking?
Half an hour.
Mhm. So that's a very critical part of the process where you're just really absorbing the information on a visual level and letting it steep, if you will,
Yeah.
in your mind.
And I paint on a lot of paintings at once. All I line them up all on the wall. And I would have a little assignment for each one, something that needs to be better.
So you might be looking at all these at the same time.
Yeah, I'm looking at them all at the same time. I've made a new friend, and that's Sasha Gordon. You know her work? She just had a big show at David's Werner. She paints completely differently than I do. She's um, an exquisite painter of detail. She paints herself naked, and they're wonderful paintings, but she only works on one painting at a time. She finishes that. She uses a very small brush.
Oil painting?
Yes. Well, I guess it's oil. I can't tell anymore. Can you?
I can't tell anymore. Are you in oil or acrylic?
No, I use acrylic.
Hmm.
I started out in oil and now I use acrylic.
Same.
But so that's interesting to know someone who paints like that. I think Elizabeth Murray would work on these great big uh, paintings of hers made up of all different panels. And she said she needed to finish it before she could start a new one. And finishing it, of course, is the great, when we see each other, we say, "Oh, I finished a painting today." That's a wonderful feeling. And only because it takes us so long to get to that point, even if you're working on a lot of paintings. So I have a lot of unfinished paintings in my studio all the time.
Like you finish them all at roughly the same time if you're working on a grouping of paintings.
No, that would be nice if I did, but I don't. Sometimes I finish them and then a month later I look at them and I realize I could make it better, or so I think I could make it better. So I work back into it. That's a scary moment.
Do you ever get a piece back from the show and work on it more after
Yes,
that?
yes, I do. Actually, I heard Elizabeth Murray on that famous film, Painter's Painting. She says that she got a piece back from the Guggenheim. She was in a show at the Guggenheim. And when she got the piece back, she looked at it and she said, it wasn't good. So she worked back into it. How about that?
That's next level. That is next
Uh,
level, you know.
yeah.
I'm fearless. You have to be. I think about something Donna was talking about. Donna Nelson was saying that she destroyed all of her work from the whole decade, from the 70s. That I'm really impressed by that, by just letting go, you know, or being able to really, really be just brutal and really question what you're doing.
Yeah. Brutal's a good word. And I heard her talk about her show at Canada, and she said that she would take a nap and then she'd come into the studio and she'd look at what was happening in one of her paintings and she'd say, there's my painting. That it looked great. She saw it. It's as if she saw it for the first time. She sort of has to find those paintings
Yeah, there's a real sense of discovery
in
in
her
that.
sight, I suppose.
I think about the way she talks about mutability, and I think about your work in the same way. And just what you've been saying really makes me think about that more, that painting is so it's just incredible. You can do anything with it. You know, there's it's right.
So we think, right?
I suppose you're limited by physics and just the materiality of it.
Did you notice I went to the Whitney Biennial and Greater New York at PS1 and then the new museum this fall, and there was very little, there was a lot of young artists, and the young artists were not doing painting. There was very little painting. And I think it's because, you tell me what you think of my theory. It's expensive and it takes a long time. So there, for instance, PS1, there was a lot of installation of found objects placed on the floor. That's my takeaway from that. Um, and that, of course, that's much less expensive to do. And it might be a while before they start buying tubes of paint and so on.
I didn't see the show at PS1, but I went to the Whitney Biennial. I didn't catch the new museum show. Did you? Was it the first show that the new museum,
Yeah, I
the
think
opening
it's up
show?
now. It's called New Humans. It's a show throughout the entire remodeled museum.
Oh, interesting. I want to
Great,
see it. I'd love to see it.
great.
Yeah, the Whitney Biennial. I was thinking there wasn't much painting in that show.
It wasn't about painting.
No, it wasn't about painting. I think there's a lot of great work in the show, but painting is slow. Just the culture is so fast, so rapid.
Right. We can scroll.
We can scroll. Our consciousness is different. You know, we're like if you can get somebody to look at a painting for longer than 30 seconds a minute, I think you captured their attention as well as you can.
Well, I've lived through periods where painting was not fashionable. Even in Brooklyn for a while, working with brush on canvas was considered old-fashioned.
What were people doing?
There were pouring paint and finding new surfaces, finding new tools to put the paint on.
But still painting.
Yeah, using paint. But I think, when they first had art fairs, there was no painting in them because they wanted to be forward thinking art fairs, and you would be considered um, behind the times if you hung up a painting. This is early on when they had art fairs and hotels.
Like the
I,
90s?
I guess it was the 90s.
Interesting. What were they showing?
Photographs, videos, um, maybe sculptures, something new. The art world is very good at giving you something brand new.
Well, that's what it does. It creates desire for a product, and which I think requires a sense of newness. It's an interesting place right now, but I wonder how you've seen the changes in the art world through the years. What are some of the good changes? What are some of the negative changes, or some of the things that are maybe not as productive or not as positive?
Well, when I arrived in New York in the 80s, the conversation in the 80s and going into the 90s and beyond was by white guys. And it was damn interesting and great, huge uh, iron sculptures made out of iron that would dominate you. And now that's so changed. It's so interesting. I don't think we want artworks that dominate us. We want, I mean, you were talking about my work, a sense of joy and discovery and so on. And you didn't seem to mind it was made by a woman. So we've come a long way.
In my mind now, that would even be a consideration, that one wouldn't take anybody seriously because of who they are. That would be astounding to me. I think so. There are some good things, some good changes that have happened in the culture, things that I think have been so gradual that it's been hard to see. For example, I tried to read a book, I think it was a Robert Heinlein golden age science fiction book, and it was so misogynistic I couldn't even read it. It was absurd. And this is a guy who was supposed to be like at the cutting edge of science fiction, but it was written in the 50s or 60s. It's easy to go back and judge now and say, of course.
One idea supplants another. I love that about the art world. And I think it's fascinating. And the place of women in the art world has changed a lot.
You could make an argument that it's still dominated by white men on a certain level, but many of my favorite painters are women, but I don't even think about it.
Okay, keep that in. Don't edit that out,
Of course.
what you just said.
Yeah, I'll keep that in. Yeah, yeah, but it's not even something that I consider. I wouldn't say, uh,
No, that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? And also, I find in our wonderful community in the art world that my men friends are painting their fingernails and becoming more feminine. And many of my formerly female artist friends have transitioned to being male. So, um, what's all that mean?
yeah. We're truly living in a different world. I think there's a lot of possibilities now, not just in terms of art as well, but the way that we move about the world that wouldn't have even been conceivable 5 or 10 years ago, even that recently. I think there's a lot of extremes as well. We're living in a culture, humans are quite a reactive species. You can look at the politics, or the art world as
God,
well.
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty much insane. Just the way
Yeah,
that we run to one thing, and then that's no good, and then we're back on the other thing. And
right.
and but in art too, you see that, there's people follow the trends and so forth. What do you think it is about painting that makes people still want to do it and still want to look at it and still want to engage with it through all these years and decades and
Well, it
centuries?
certainly has an elegant history, doesn't it? Um, and that's where a lot of us start, art history, and going to Europe, where painting was so big. Um, well, sometimes I want to say to a young artist who's struggling along, look, why don't you make a painting and stack them in this studio that's so full of stuff for your sculpture? I mean, my God, it's huge. It's taking up all this space. It's much harder to sell. Why don't you give yourself a break and do a little painting of swimmers? People love those.
I think this is good. This is good advice. I might take your advice.
I spent the summer of 2009 at Skowhegan as a resident faculty. So I got to stay there all 9 weeks, which was great. And Skowhegan deliberately wants, like Noah's Ark, they want a little bit of uh, performance artists, installation artists, sculptors, video artists, and some painters. So that was eye-opening for me. And I did get influenced. I started making little videos because it just seemed like such fun. I never, I did, a few galleries showed my little videos, but no one wanted to buy them. I think that's, uh, you know, a stalling point. Um, and I saw how much say the performance artists needed a lot of other people around to do a performance. They needed the cooperation of the community, which you would have at Skowhegan. But once I returned to Brooklyn, working alone in my studio, I went back to making paintings.
It's true that it's easy to do on your own. It's
Yeah,
it's nice in that way that it doesn't require much. All you need is a little space, some materials, and just your
and,
mind
and a dream.
and the dream. That's it. That's the dream. The dream. What paintings have influenced you historically?
Well, when I began painting living in Maine, I was very taken by Marston Hartley, who gave me permission to paint awkwardly. He wasn't like another Maine painter, Andrew Wyeth, who everyone admires because he's so skillful and talented. But people admire Marston Hartley because he's emotional and paints vulnerable people and doesn't and invents the way a cloud looks. And all that I was very taken with. So I guess I started in the right state, right? Because Marston Hartley's sort of the patrons. Marston Hartley was born and grew up in Maine, and then he traveled the world. But the state of Maine really loves him, and the museums have terrific examples of his work. I moved here when I married someone who wanted to live in Maine in the 70s. Actually, I moved to Maine from New York.
Ah, so you grew up in New York
No, um, near New York.
and then moved to Maine later in life and then back to New York
Yeah,
with your kids to pursue your
right.
career as an artist. So when you first moved back to the city, what was the situation like?
It was tough. I th- I think this is the point of my story that people are most fascinated with. Like, who the hell did she think she was? She took her two kids and moved to New York to be an artist. I mean, really, that was could be a train wreck. But the parts of the story that are left out was that I had lived in New York. I had family. Both grandmothers were New York people. I had a sister living in New York. I mean, I wasn't completely on my own.
But a move like that would still require a lot of bravery.
Thank you. I think my children thought I was completely out of my mind to do that.
How
And
old were
they
your kids?
and they told me I had twins and they were just entering fourth grade.
So they thought it was crazy to come back,
Oh, yes.
but you had to do it.
No, I downplayed it. I didn't argue with them. I just let them say what they wanted and quietly went about taking one step at a time.
What were you doing for work in those days?
I was teaching all the years that I wasn't earning money from art. I was teaching first English as a second language. Then after I got my MFA, I taught starting with community colleges. I taught at FIT, then I taught at Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, and one of the last places I taught was at Yale. So isn't that amazing?
Truly, it is. I think people love success stories like that, and I love it too. And I love the way in which, you already had kids, you were living somewhere else, you come to the city and just cobble together some teaching or whatever you do just to make art and then eventually make a career of your work.
Just like that.
Just like that. It's so easy, right? I talk a lot about this. I don't know if you read that Josh Klein article.
A lot of good points in it.
A lot of good points. I wonder what kind of a world that young artists now, even when I moved to the city 12, 13 years ago, I think it was a different landscape than it is now.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to change.
It makes me a little concerned, not just art and artists, but the overall health of the culture. We really need artists. It's so important. And I know it's easy for people to say, well, what am I doing here? I'm just in the studio making paintings. What is it really? I think it's far more important than even we realize.
You're doing a very smart thing at this point in your career to have podcasts and interview artists. That's a very good way of becoming part of the community, doing something for the community, and the community will be giving back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Maybe it's somewhat parallel to Peter Scheer posting paintings on Instagram, and he became known to many people.
I hope that people can benefit from this, from these conversations. I know that I do, and I've gotten so much inspiration from talking to artists and this conversation. I know I'm going to be thinking about this for a long time afterwards. So thank you again for doing this. I hope that that is true, that it's something that I can provide a service and be of use.
I think it's very important to show up at these events, the talks, the openings. And you've mentioned a couple of times where our paths have crossed because we both showed up at some place.
Yes, yes. So we met at a couple of different openings. First at Peters, and then we saw each other. Yes, at a couple of different events at Canada Gallery, which I want to ask you about as well. I always enjoy seeing you out at these things because you sense it, right? You sense a fellow artist. You know on a consciousness level, somebody that is of the same spirit, wanting to live a creative life.
You said it, and you used the word spirit, and I totally agree with you. I love all these spirit people we know. I think sometimes I paint spirit people.
I think you do. Which I wanted to ask you about. How do you think about subject and narrative in your work?
Oh, I don't think
Mhm.
about it. That's too heavy. I think about it after I've done the painting.
Yeah.
I just posted a painting on Instagram that it was a painting that people had a lot to say about it, which I really appreciated tremendously. Um, and that came up like the people in it, were they haunted? Were they alive? Were they imaginary? Were they and you see, I don't dwell much on describing people as far as gender, nationality, and so on, which is so interesting in this day and age, people's cultural life and background that they're talking about in their work. So I'm not talking about that. I'm not even telling the gender of many of my people.
I'm looking at the painting right now, actually. It's a dark painting with a group of perhaps swimmers. There's a moon in the upper left corner. Is that right?
Right.
Beautiful painting. That's lovely. That's just lovely. And there is a real ambiguity and mysteriousness there. And I didn't think about that they don't seem gendered or they don't seem necessarily they're not very non-specific in that way. But the color is very specific. And I wanted to talk to you about specificity too. I really enjoy this ambiguous quality of there's abstraction, there's representation, and there's from a subject matter point of view, it's very open, but the color is very specific. The tone is very specific, I should say.
It's fog. Well, Or moonlight. I think what you're looking at might be moonlight, which I kind of stumbled on.
You didn't know it was going to be moonlight when you started painting the painting.
No. In fact, midway through, I don't think there was moonlight. I had to keep adjusting it.
I think you're a wizard.
Oh, you do?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm just an old white lady.
No, no, you're a wizard. I, I'm just I'm just amazed that you don't know that you just start these paintings and they just manifest. They just become, they just appear.
I'm amazed too sometimes.
So what was it when you started this painting?
Sky and water. Um, I was dividing the rectangle, as you can see. There's, I think, white water and a dark island. Um, I
And a
mean,
house on the hill?
yeah, that actually I see everywhere. I'm right on the coast of Maine now, and I'm on a peninsula. So instead of looking out to sea, chances are you're looking out into the water and you're going to see an island or another peninsula. And that's what that painting takes advantage of. And you might see that's an old New England house. Um, you'll see that in the distance, and that I started using that to give it a sense of scale and distance. And also, it's really easy to paint. It's like a dollhouse. I'm not showing off my architectural chops.
But there's a bit of restraint.
Yes, there is. I think I learned that from Milton Avery. Also painted a lot of New England seacoast things.
I'm kind of reminded of Albert Pinkham Ryder.
Oh, yes. Those great moonlight paintings.
Ooh, you kill me.
This morning, I was just talking on the phone to one of the galleries I work with, and he said, "Well, we have a painting here that no one wants to buy. It's that dark one." And I thought, "Oh, don't say that."
Oh man. So you've been working with Canada for a while.
Yes, I have.
Those guys are great. They always have great shows.
They're full of fun and impishness. Even the fact that they named the gallery Canada, which is so confusing to so many people, sometimes it's a pain in the neck to explain, but it shows that they weren't going to be like everybody else.
Was that the impetus behind Canada? That they wanted to be somewhat foreign? Is that
No, not foreign. They just didn't want to have a name, like somebody's name, or they didn't want a proper name. I think that if every time you ask one of them, they'll tell you a different story.
that's great. I think they're the probably the most well-known artist-run space in New York, right? Maybe in the world.
You think so?
I think so. I can't think of another.
I have challenged them about this artist run um, description that they give themselves because I'm an artist at Canada Gallery and I am not running it. I can tell you that.
That's good. You make a very good point.
No one's ever said that to me. When I
Yeah.
when I point out to them, hey, wait a minute. What about the fact that this is artist run? And then
I,
they do something that I don't want them to do.
right, right, right. Perhaps the fact that the people that do run the show are artists attributes
Yes,
to the
I
quality.
think that's the point of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people that open galleries are artists, become artists.
Yeah, I think you'd have to be kind of insane to not be an artist and get into this game, right?
You know, that's a really great point. You just said you have to be kind of insane. And that's one thing I learned along the line is don't try and make sense and let your whimsy out. And you don't have to have a reason for doing something. And your paintings don't have to make sense. Did I already say that? Maybe I
You
did.
can say that's worth saying again.
In fact, Fong Bui was the first person to say, "Oh, Kathy, you don't want your paintings to make sense." And that was very liberating. He gave me permission to 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 put things in my paintings that other people are going to have to figure out. Not me, but them.
They're really so dreamlike. A dream doesn't necessarily make sense. It has its own logic, but it doesn't have to make sense as compared to the outside world, right? The waking world.
Well, Jerry Saltz saw this post of this painting that we were talking about, the moonlight painting, and he put it on his Instagram. And the first sentence he wrote about this painting was, Katherine Bradford has given herself permission to not make any distinction between reality and dreams.
That's good.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. So he came to the same conclusion that you just came to, Dan, just now.
Mhm. I think that's what's so fun about your paintings. I'm not looking for logic in them. I don't need it to make sense. Like I said before, there's a freedom in it. But if you want to put figures here, what, who cares? Like I'm looking at this, I'm still looking at this painting now, the most recent one you posted with the moon, and the figures in the background are basically the same size figures in the foreground. But I don't question it. I don't care because it makes sense. It has its own logic, and defies the logic of the real world. And why not? Why make a painting that has to adhere to all the rules that we have,
Academic rules.
academic rules?
And you asked me who was the first artist I was influenced by, and I said Joan Snyder. And she often makes a field and then puts points of paint in it. And that's what those swimmers are. They're in a color field, and I just distributed them like chess pieces across a board. I hope you won't think of chess pieces, though.
No, I wouldn't. Now I will. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. Yeah. It's obviously influenced by where you are, the geography, what you've seen as a painter, things you've been influenced, painters have been influenced by, ways of working. Painting is truly, at its best, it's really the purest reflection of one's life experience, I think.
Go for it.
You said some painters historically, you mentioned Europe. Did you take a trip to Europe and see painters that were influential?
Well,
Old painters?
actually, the first time I went to Miami Basel was very eye-opening because you can walk around this huge room and you're actually walking between continents. There's a Japanese gallery, there's a German gallery, there's a South American gallery, and you can see in an instant what their flavor is. And that's how I discovered the artist um, Norbert Schwankowski, who hasn't shown much in this country, but he whittles things down the way I do. They're very simple, calm paintings. And I saw them in a German gallery called Contemporary Fine Arts. And that was like walking into another world. And there I was in Miami, Florida, having that experience.
What a crazy world we're in. You're living in New York, and then you go down to a tropical place in the same country, to Miami, to see paintings from Germany. If you really think about all the things required for that to happen, it's pretty astounding.
It's pretty great, isn't it?
It is great. It is great. There's so many opportunities. You can see so much art. We're exposed to so many different cultures. Have you traveled to see art a lot in your life?
Well, I went to Japan for a show, which was great. I had a show in Tokyo, and um, that was a wonderful experience. Now, does that count as seeing art?
I think so. Do you feel like you're influenced by your trip?
You can't help but be influenced. Japan is a different planet.
Truly, it truly is. I lived in Osaka when I was in high school. I did an exchange program in high school, and I went back once.
That's great. They weren't going to keep you in Illinois, were they?
No, actually, I should say that I grew up in Indiana, but I
I'm
went to
sorry.
no, no, no. I went to grad school in Illinois, so
Okay.
I did
Right.
spend some time in Illinois.
Midwest, right?
At this point, I feel like much more of a New Yorker. I still visit family, and I still have friends in Illinois, former teachers that I talk to still from grad school. Where'd you go to grad school? New York, right?
Yeah, I went to Purchase.
How did you like it?
I was in the first year of uh, them having graduate students, so it was kind of experimental, which was fine. I liked it very. I knew I wanted to teach, um, and so I went through the MFA program, made some very good friends there. But what you made me think of is in the wake of the Knicks winning, people were saying all the New Yorkers coming together, cheering them on and celebrating, and that the mayor is Muslim, the the Jews are have their bagels, and I mean they were just pointing out that all these people, these Knicks fans, were made up of all the continents, all being New Yorkers.
It's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an incredibly diverse place.
I love that. I love taking the subway in New York, which I do at least twice a day. And and I don't even want to look at my phone because the people are so fascinating from all over the world, from every continent, sitting in that one car.
It's amazing. It's great that that you don't take it for granted. I mean, and most people are just sitting looking at their phones and then just trying to slog through it, whatever. But if you look around, it is truly amazing. I think Queens is technically the most diverse place on the planet.
One time I got really excited because I looked across from where I was sitting and there were 6 or 7 people in a row and they were all blonde. So I took a picture of them and I showed it to people. I said, look, a whole row of blonde people in the New York subway. But no one was quite as excited as I was about that.
That's a rare thing though.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah. I
you,
mean,
you'd have to know the New York subway to know how rare that
that's
was.
rare. Yeah, should have played the lottery that day.
I should have.
Well, I think it's incredibly healthy though to be in a place that is this diverse as an artist, but also just as a human being. You're more tolerant, you're more accepting, you can't be freaking out every time somebody does something kind of weird, so it increases your tolerance for that.
Isn't that amazing when there's sort of a crisis on the subway? Someone's losing it, someone's having a nervous breakdown, or the car stops, and I don't know. And everyone sits in their seat and just does nothing, doesn't even react.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Another crazy day on the New York subway.
Yep, it's if you were from I think anywhere else that everybody would just be kind of panicking or finding out like trying to find out what the problem with the person is or trying to get them help or whatever. But here it is kind of just just kind of normal. I was on a subway ride and this guy was like the train had stopped and it was stopped for like a good while. It was like 5 or 10 minutes, but all the things that you would be thinking in your mind, he was just saying out loud.
You're going to die.
Yeah, like I'll just why isn't the train moving? What's going on here? And just like having a complete meltdown. But it almost seemed like I think maybe he just couldn't control what he was saying because he didn't seem like he was really freaking out on a physical level, but just like voicing all the things that you might be thinking in your mind.
Yeah.
But the energy of the city is it's so astounding on a visual level, just a feast. Do you live in Manhattan?
Yes. So I take the subway from where I live to Brooklyn and
Nice.
back again.
What's your studio situation up in Maine?
I have a place to make paintings in a mill, an old mill, which is full of artists at this point. Um, it's fabulous. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want all your friends in New York to come up here and get a space in that mill.
You-
So
I
don't tell anyone.
I won't tell anybody. They won't blow up your spot. What's your summer looking like?
The summers in Maine are very lively with lots of events. It's like N New York season, when the fall and the spring and all the shows and all the things to do. Well, you get to Maine and it's very geared up in the summer.
What kind of events do they have?
The colleges that are up here all have very good museums. Colby College has an enormous museum with an entire wing devoted to Alex Katz. The Bowdoin College Museum. Incidentally, did you know that Mamdani went to Bowdoin College?
No, I didn't know that.
He did.
Interesting.
And I live very near Bowdoin College. They have a wonderful museum. Um, and it's terrific. And I have longstanding friends here that I am so glad to see each summer.
It's great. It's wonderful. So you have a community there. Do you have artist friends as well?
Yes, wonderful artist friends.
You have a community in Maine and in New York.
Yes. When you say, well, what advice would you give a young artist? I think there's a whole book on that. And many of the artists said, well, you need a community. You need to form a community. I think you were saying like-minded spirits. That's what you need, right?
I was going to ask that very question. What advice would you give to young artists? And I think that's probably the most important thing that I could think of. And it's really about connection. It's
Yeah.
about what the work is. It's inert if it's not it has to be activated by consciousness.
That's kind of highfalutin.
Well, what I mean is, I'm glad you say that because I don't want to say something that seems like just
I
to
think
be out there.
it has to communicate in some direction
Yeah, exactly.
and to land somewhere.
That's a better way of putting it. Thank you for that.
I don't know about that.
You can't be made in a vacuum. It's a living thing, right?
Once I said to my mother, I saw the way she'd set the table, the colors and all this visual decision she'd made. And I said to her, wow, Mom, you would make a great artist. And she turned around and she got mad at me. She said, no, uh, uh, absolutely not. I am a people person because she thought of an artist as working alone and being isolated, just the thing we're talking about, with no connections. And what was important to her all her life, she was a very social person. So she misunderstood us. We're not solitary. We need each other badly. We do make our work alone, some of us, but the connections we make, just as you're saying, are vital.
Do you feel like your mother never understood your desire to be an artist? Was it difficult to find support from your family?
Yes, mainly because I was already married with children and they thought that would lead to divorce, which it did. And I think they thought that I was heading for trouble. And I think a lot of families feel that. Although I notice there are a lot of artists who come from artist families, but I did not come from that.
When did you know you were an artist?
I'm still working on it. So if I'm part of this podcast, does that mean I'm an artist?
That's right.
Oh boy.
Yes, now you are.
Well, you don't all have all visual artists. You have some other members of the art world, right?
Yes, I thought of it as visual artists and musicians and meditators because I still do sometimes to go to, do you know Vipassana meditation?
I know about that.
A certain technique that involves just observing sensations in the body. Very basic. It's one of the earliest teachings of the Buddha. They try to make it non-denominational and non-sectarian, but it does come from the Buddhist tradition. Anyhow, so I knew a couple monks peripherally through that tradition and some other meditators and some people involved in that community. But mostly the people that I know and the ones that are on the podcast are visual artists. But there have been a couple musicians on as well. I recently had the director of the music program at Trinity Church, Melissa Atterbury. She did a rendition of the Messiah at Trinity that I saw that was just astounding. And I don't know, have you seen it in New York?
I love hearing Messiah at Christmas time.
Beautiful piece, such a
Yeah.
beautiful piece. They do a version that's an hour long at Christmas and they finish it off at Easter. That was a good conversation, but I mostly visual artists. Another great thing about being in New York is a lot of it is really about who you know on a personal level. A lot of things still have to be done in person. Showing up is still something you do in person.
Yeah.
You can going to openings and going to events and things where you're real people getting together in a real space. All the jobs that I've gotten were just from knowing people here. The place that I live now, this live workspace, was just from meeting people through other people, just through the local community. I guess what I'm saying is that New York still feels like there's a real local quality to it.
So you're a great example of someone who moved to New York and is making a life being an artist. And I suppose you're looking at me that had I did that also.
Yes,
We moved here with a dream, and I've had a little more time to realize it than you.
but it's so beautiful to see the way that you've realized your dream, that it is possible. And I think people love, and I love
To hear that,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you forever, but I could talk to you all day. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
I'd just like to thank you, and I hope you keep doing these interviews and get a wider and wider audience.
I hope so. And thank you so much for doing this. It's been a real privilege.
And I'll see you in New York.
See you in New York. Have a great summer.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye, Kathy. You too. Talk to you soon.